Hello, welcome to another Soul Horse Sunday conversation. And today my guest is Tara Coyote. And many of you know who she is. You've followed a lot of her journey throughout her work and her cancer journey. So I'm thrilled to have her here. And Tara, would you like to just introduce yourself and say a few things as we get started?
Sure, yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor. She said, my name is Tara Coyote. I live in Kauai, Hawaii. I'm an equine facilitated learning instructor. I trained with Linda Kohanov, who wrote the best-selling book, The Tao of Equus, at Eponaquest. I've run a horse retreat center, Wind Horse Sanctuary, for many years now, 8 years, I believe. It was in Nevada City in Northern California. Now it's in Kauai, Hawaii. I came out with a book in August of 2021 called Grace, Grit, and Gratitude, A Cancer Thriver's Journey from Hospice to Full Recovery with the Healing Power of Horses. And I'm also a wild horse advocate. And I have a book, Comanche the Wild Mustang. Actually, I have the main book and the coloring book. This is the coloring book version. But yeah, I'm very passionate about the human-horse connection. I'm very grateful to be alive and happy to be here with you.
Great. I'm happy you're here with me too. Happy you're alive. Okay, so because this conversation is basically about the role that horses fulfill in our spiritual journey, there's a few questions I always like to ask people, because sometimes people that listen to this, or they're close with their horse, but they actually don't feel like they have the definition of the horse being a part of their spiritual journey. And I think that sometimes we look for maybe signs that are a little too grand, or we look for, booming voices from on high, when it's really the whispers at our feet that is our journey and most of our life through horses. So I would like to ask you, in what circumstance or in what setting do you most often recognize that your horses are inviting you to communicate, to participate with them in a spiritual kind of way?
Right. That's a great question. I think it's every day, to be honest. I used to have 4 horses when I owned my larger retreat center. Now, when I moved back home to Kauai, Hawaii, it was hard to bring horses across the ocean. So I just brought 2. So I have 2, Blue and Comanche. They're very dear to my heart. And I believe it's daily. It's every single day. I feed them 3 times a day. I take care of them daily. And it's just my life. I'm very blessed to have my life enmeshed with theirs. So it's like they're constantly here. I live in an off the grid here in Hawaii. They're literally like 20 feet away, on the other side of the fence. So I feel like it's a presence I always feel. I mean, I do horse sessions with clients, and that act of doing equine facilitated learning, like that comes out more, that connection with the human and the horse. But as far as my daily connection with them, it's every single day, just being with them on the same property. I feel them, and I feel like they help regulate my own nervous system. And it's a big factor of why I'm doing so well in defeating the odds with stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement, with regulating your nervous system, because my horses do that for me. I'm a Virgo. I'm real mercurial in my head. I think way too much. And then being empathic, it makes everything loud. So that's an interesting way to put it. And it's so true. My horses definitely regulate my nervous system, and they ground me. They bring me back into what's internally important to me. Despite what's going on externally, internally, they bring me back to my true north, to my place of home, to who I really am, to who they really are, and us and our relationship together. Yeah, but regulating your nervous system is an interesting way to put that. Do you feel like, I don't know, have you always had a spiritual connection to your horses, or was that something that came along through your life experience? Because I know when I was younger, I always was obsessed with them, but I didn't have the spiritual communication that I have had with them in the last, say, 15 years.
Well, I never had horses till about 13 years ago. I was a horse crazy young girl and I begged my parents for a horse, but they never got me. Would have been good if they did. I would have been a less trouble causing teenager. But I did spend summers with my dear cousins in New Hampshire and they had horses. So I'd spend time with horses in the summer, and, you know, during the year I'd take horse riding lessons and such. So I'm not one of those people who's had a lot of experience doing dressage or other modalities where I switched to tune into them. I think I always felt them in that way, and that was my draw to be with them, but I never had the opportunity to really dive into it until, which I talk about in my book, a very stressful incident occurred with my husband at the time, which drew me to the horses to do therapy with them and work with Linda Kohanov and such. And so I mean, it's always been a spiritual connection, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah. It's just, I know a lot of us didn't identify that early on with horses. You need them, but I know that when I mean that I wasn't so spiritually connected to them, I guess it was there, but I didn't recognize it. I used to follow the traditional thinking of I'm the herd leader. And so I did that with my first horse, and I've apologized to her for that. And then it became, it slowly evolved over to where we're partners and we co-create everything. We share a co-intelligence together to get to where we need to be, and so that we both have what we need within our relationship and our physical expression of who we are. But I just know that it wasn't something that I recognized as a spiritual connection until, like I said, about maybe 12 to 15 years ago. And I haven't had horses my whole life either. I was in my 30s before I got one. And same thing, I would cry and beg and pray for a horse, and in hindsight, it would have been a terrible life for the horse because my family wasn't animal people. So even if they would have got one, it would have not been a good experience. So I kind of am grateful for that unanswered prayer. But now at this place in life, I can't even imagine life without them. They're so important to my well-being, to my soul connection, to how I experience everything that is divine. Do you think that I don't know, I know that you talk about different goddesses and gods in your journey. I just listened to your book, which I do recommend people listen to. And you would talk a lot about, Kali and Hunana?
Inanna,
the goddess of the underbelly, I guess. And do you think that having your horses has changed how you relate to anything that is divine or any spiritual philosophy that you have?
Oh, for sure. Yes. I feel very connected to horses, and I feel like they're here to help guide humanity at this difficult time. Like I have had visions, and I feel that so strongly.
Right.
I feel like they definitely awaken my spirituality. I feel like I create videos and a lot of content online. I think, I feel like they influence my writing and my videos and the awareness that comes in. If I'm able to tune into them, if I'm caught up in my human mind and social media and all that, like I miss the messages sometimes, but when I'm tuned in, they definitely influence my spirituality. They're always holding ground for me. They're such profound forces.
Yeah, I find that since I've given myself to what I call horse religion, my whole relationship with God and the divine and goddess has changed, because I grew up incredibly fundamental and everything was so rigid and dogmatic and judgmental and just mean. So I just kind of like, now God belongs way over there, because that God, all he does is sit around and watch your genitals all day long and judge you. So I just put, way aside, and I follow spirituality, but I kind of let go of praying and things like that because of the reaction, the 180 to all of that dogma. And then having my horses and tuning into them spiritually has kind of brought me back to connection, to giving more thought to prayer and meditation, to making me more open to the bigger spiritual influence in the whole world. They've definitely expanded on that. And what you said earlier, I just did a virtual called Horses as Avatars. And one of my big focus in that is that what you said earlier about horses are here to change the planet and the world that we live in now. And to me, for a species that has been so misused and abused and misunderstood for centuries, the fact that horses are still with us tells me that they are here to walk us into that next frontier of spirituality. So maybe give some of your perspective on that. That was my kind of condensed version, but what about your perspective on what horses are here to do and lead us into in the future? What is their purpose into becoming now, rather than, horsepower or just sports or whatever? This is a whole new frontier with horses now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a whole new role they're playing. I mean, with the work with Linda, she talks about heart math and how the heart is more powerful than the head, but we humans were taught to work from our head. It's all about I think and dominating the earth and such. And then the horses, of course, have such large hearts, which is a big reason why I think it's so healing and calming for humans to be around them. So, I feel like there could be so much healing in humanity if we tuned into our heart and really listened to it and were considerate and kind to others. It could be such a beautiful world. So I feel like horses help us tune into our bodies. A lot of the work also I learned is about listening to the body with a body scan and paying attention to, say, like, if you have a pain in your shoulder, to not just ignore it and suppress it, but to listen. What does your shoulder have to say? And there's something so powerful about being with the horses that help us tune into our breath and our body and help calm down our nervous system. It brings us back to our parasympathetic sense, which is so important for healing. And it's such a powerful way to transform our experience. I have to say too, I live here in Hawaii, and a big part of my healing in the last year, because both of my parents died in the last year and a half, and it's been very traumatic, is to be in the ocean. And, I've connected with whales and turtles, and I haven't swam with whales, but I've been in the water when whales are there. And I feel like there's a similar energetic, I know we're talking about horses here, but these animals, these huge mammals, have a lot of power that and awareness and enlightenment, in the sense that we humans, I feel like we're just like this much of what they're tuned into. They say that we humans only use 10% of our capacity. And I feel like there's so much more going on than we realize. And these animals, the horses, the whales, they're very sentient beings awakened that if we stop to tune into, we can listen to. I want to add one more thing to that. And I know you're aware of this. I'm always so odd when horses are in a deep space of sleep together. It's almost like a sense of samadhi, and it's hard to put into words, but it's almost like I sense their energy going out. And I know it sounds woo-woo, but going out and permeating me. I've had incidents with the cancer journey I'm on. I get monthly shots once a month, and they knock me out for a few days. I feel terrible. And every time I go through that experience, they are near me, holding such sacred space, like energetically helping me through the discomfort I'm feeling in my body and my mind. So that's a very roundabout way of answering. I hope that makes sense.
Right. Well, it's just one of the aspects of that answer. Absolutely. It's interesting when you said that humans use about 10% of their brain. We've all heard that. And when you said that, I thought that's a really good thing, because if we think anymore, we're in big trouble, because we need to feel more. So until we learn to create more space and awareness for our feelings and our intuition and our subconscious mind and body, then we probably don't need to be thinking anymore.
Right. We've done enough thinking. It's time to get into being. And that's another thing, that they're beings. They just are. They're not caught up in thinking about what they're going to do tomorrow, or, paying taxes. They're just here, embracing the moment, which is so beautiful.
But I do feel like there's like I had an unpleasant medical diagnosis also, and my horses knew. And I didn't go out to them and cry or want to talk it through, but I could feel them holding space for me. I could feel them just allowing me to be vulnerable in that spot. And I did, like I said, I didn't cry with them. I didn't want to talk it out, but I just, when I was around them for the next probably 6 weeks or so, I could just feel them holding space for me. Horses are amazing at holding space. And so many times they hold us when we don't even know. They hold us emotionally. They hold us in our fear. They hold us. I did a reading with a woman, and her horse talked about that he held her in her darkness. And I thought that was such an amazing way for a horse to express what they do. Is, they watch over us in our darkness. They're there with us in our fears, in our growth. They're there. They just hold space for us in so many ways.
They truly do. They truly do. Yes.
Okay, so let me see if there's any pertinent questions, or if I'm just going to let you take the reins and do what you say, whatever you'd like to say. Do you think that there are ways that your horse tries to specifically engage with you about some kind of a conversation, like a spiritual conversation? I'm not really sure even how to ask that question. It wasn't on there. I just thought of it. But I know that sometimes my gray mare, who's very quiet, I call her a ghost horse. You can't make her be interactive. She will hover around me, but if she touches me on the shoulder with her nose, it's like this big gesture for her. That's just who she is. So she sometimes will instigate quiet conversation with me more than my horse that's more loud. So how do you think that your horses will ask you to come and like hold a spiritual or an internal conversation with you? And I ask questions like this there again, so that people that listen that may not feel like they feel like they need paths to follow or instructions, just give them things to be more aware of, so that they know that they are following, or what to look for, so that they can follow that path of communication.
Wonderful. Yes, I get that. Great question. I really feel it's important to listen to them and see what they do. What do they do with their head? Do they, for example, do certain movements with you? Do they tap you with their chin in certain parts of your body? To really listen. I had an amazing circumstance that happened with my mare Daisy when I was still in Nevada City. It was within a week of me being diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. It was in September 2016. And within that week, I was so floored and blown away. I mean, getting a diagnosis like that it changes your life. It shakes your whole world. And I was walking around stunned, and my beautiful mare Daisy, a beautiful Haflinger mare with her blonde mane and golden, big, strong body, she came up to me and she put her big head on my shoulder. And of course it was kind of heavy. And I just stood there in awe. And then she proceeded to rub her head up and down the left part of my body. And the tumor was in my left breast. And it was so obvious she was comforting me and almost like just soothing the shock, the mental shock I was feeling. And in a sense, just saying, it's going to be okay. We're here and we know. So that was a very profound thing that really blew me away, of like, my horses are with me. And so, little did I know, years later, I'd be referred to hospice. And then after that, write a book about how my horses helped me. So I just share that as an example to really listen and tune in. Are they licking and chewing around you? Are they yawning a lot? What are they doing around you? And to really pay attention to those signs, because they're trying to communicate with you, whether it be subtle and quietly through the psychic messages, or through doing some physical action that you can interpret.
Right. I know there's a lot of talk nowadays and a lot of study about horses and chakra work. And actually, I haven't studied that because I just feel like I'm busy doing other things, but I do believe in it. And I know that Enchantress, my bay mare, when she would meet me at the gate, she would bonk me on top of the head with the bottom of her jaw. And I would just look at her, it's like, I'm here. Why are you bonking me on the head? That actually kind of hurts. And I was talking to someone who does chakra work with horses, and she was talking about, the horse was actually working on the chakra, and she's never done that since then. She's never bonked me on the head since I became aware of that.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Yeah, I had a client yesterday. She flew over for the day to work with me doing the equine facilitated learning work, and one of my horses blew. kept bopping her in her solar plexus, you know, not super hard, but enough to be like, like something's going on there. And it was an amazing message where she realized she needed to take power in her life and leadership and be more assertive. So yeah, they're such, yeah. And that was working on that chakra there too. Exactly.
Absolutely. I like I said, I don't study that work, but I appreciate it. And at some point I will dive into it a little farther. But for right now, I feel like I've got my hands full with my own work.
Right.
So is there anything you would like to just, I don't do equine assisted EEFP or equine assisted learning of any kind. I haven't studied like that, even though I mean, clearly I know who Linda Kohanov is, and I appreciate her work tremendously. But I don't do that type of work. So when you talk about horses, that work is also spiritually guided, right?
Oh,
All of
yeah.
the equine assisted, it's all spiritually guided. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that and your experience with it. And I don't want to say the benefits of it, but some of the results or some of the things that you witnessed in that work.
Yes, I'm happy to. There is the emotional message chart in Linda's work, which is all about, you know, there's anger, fear, frustration, grief, sadness, all these emotions, and how it's so important to get the message behind the emotion, do something about it, like shift it, and then, you know, that'll transform that emotion and then go back to grazing, metaphorically speaking. And I've done a lot of work with people with grief. I used to lead for many years grief rituals with horses at the retreat center. And I'll speak about grief because that's an emotion I know a lot about and I've worked with people with. But, you know, grief is an emotion that we are not taught to process in our culture. And, you know, there's also shame about it. You know, so many close people around me have died. So I've been thoroughly schooled in this, not by my choice, obviously, but there's a lot of fear and trepidation about sharing whatever you're grieving about because our cultures tells us to, you know, just get on with it sort of thing. So in the work with the horses, as far as experiencing whatever emotion it may be, I'm using grief as an example, but it could be anger. It's like through exercises of being with them and helping you tune into your body, it helps to evoke and release whatever emotion it may be, grief, anger, sadness, to free it from your body. So it's not circulating your brain all the time or, you know, impacting your body. I'll just say this as a side note. I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer a year after my best friend died, my best friend of 19 years. And it was very traumatic. And though I was expressing my grief, I feel like that was a big part of my diagnosis. So if you do not let go of your emotions, they will impact your body and lead to dis-ease. So that's why I'm emphasizing this. But through the work with the horses, they help us to release whatever it is we're holding, which I feel like is so important so we can be healthy, because emotions are meant to be temporary. They're not meant to be held onto for days and weeks and months and years. They're meant to just flow on through, like, okay, I'm feeling grief, I'm feeling anger. What's the message behind it? And now I'm going to go back to living my life and going back to joy, and until another emotion comes, another wave, so to speak.
Right. And I do want to come back to this, but as an injection, when I was reading your book and you mentioned the grief ritual, so I went to your website and I thought, there was something because of my diagnosis that I wanted to let go of grief. And so I haven't gone through your process, people, but you might want to look into the grief rituals that she offers. I just did my own grief ritual. And I was surprised that I really thought it was going to be highly traumatic and emotional, because grief can be horrible. And it was interesting because my experience is that the grief came in and separated what was mine and what was never mine. So it was really interesting. So if you are a person who needs to work through some grief, I would recommend that you investigate her program. Like I said, I didn't go through the program. I may do that at some point with you, but just the idea that you talked about in your book caused me to look into that myself. And it was interesting how it did shift things, but in a way I didn't expect. So going back to what you were talking about, the horses and equine assisted learning, how do the horses, what is their role? How do they act out their part of that kind of work?
Mm-hmm. That's hard to explain, really. I mean, it's such a magical process, and each time is different. Like this client came over yesterday and she had a totally different interaction with my horses than, say, somebody last week did. So they really embody the work just by being who they are in the moment, wherever they're at, and they reflect humans so beautifully. I've seen people come in with repressed anger, and sometimes the horses can mirror it through their body interactions. And you wonder, okay, what's going on? Is that the horse or is that the human? But there's quite a reflective process that happens where you can interpret, if you choose to, their actions. Some people notice that they'll be thinking a certain thought and then the horse will do something. They're such mirrors of the soul, so to speak. So, and the work I do too, there's reflective exercises and there's more leadership-based ones, more active ones. So it really depends on the exercise, but they're such mirrors for what we do, like say, if I'm not very good with my boundaries, and there is a horse that might come and push that, like step into my space until I create boundaries that he or she can listen to. So there's so many ways they can work with us. It's quite phenomenal. And for those of you who are just watching this podcast who aren't necessarily interested in trying this sort of work, I really encourage you to listen to how your horse is if you're riding him or her, or just walking along or grooming. Like there's so many messages that can come through just by even standing near a horse. Even if you don't even have a horse, just being across the fence from a horse, you can get so much information.
Right. Random horses talking to you. Yes.
Random horses. Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. When you were talking, I just thought of something, and I haven't talked about this before, but how do you think that your horses relate to each other spiritually? And what I mean by that is my horses get along. Chant is the lead, and she pushes Mystic around a lot. But in general, they have such a quiet flow between them. And I know that lots of horses don't have that. And my theory is because I participate in our spirituality, it causes them to also strengthen that energy, their spiritual energy also. And I think that's why they tend to have more flow within themselves as a herd. So what are your thoughts on, I suspect that your two are similar.
Yeah, they're such peaceful beings. They're so wonderful. I like that point. I haven't thought about that so much, how we impact them, but of course they do, because we're tuning into them and listening to them and respectful and not making them do something they're obviously not wanting to do. So yeah, I believe that. Like, I feel like I'm part of the herd with them, with all my animals really, but I feel very honored. Like they've taken me in as one of them as a way, even though they know I'm human, I'm different, but there's an acceptance and a deep love that they portray towards me. Yeah, respect, but you have to earn it. One of my horses, my paint horse Blue, when I got him 8 years ago, he was, oh my gosh, such a different horse. He was very destructive and just wacky and wild and intelligent and such a lovely being, but he kept pushing the boundaries and pulled like a big post out of the ground. I mean, crazy stuff happened with him. And now, I mean, he's still a bit of a wild card, but he's very peaceful and has completely shifted his energetic. And I've seen that with many horses, horses I adopted that were retired lesson horses. It was so beautiful to witness the transformation where the horse was almost like, wow, she's allowing me to just be a horse and be who I am. I'm not being made to do this every day. I can just be and do what I want to do and actually be listened to with my reactions, so to speak.
Right. And yeah, interesting. I believe that Blue's name used to be Slugger or something like that.
Very good. Yes.
So
Yes.
when you think about that, I'm actually a person. In my last Soul Host conversation, I had a conversation with Nancy Windhard about names, how important names are to our animals.
Yes.
And when you think about that, Slugger, I mean, maybe the person just thought he was this big, powerful horse, but I think also that represents an aspect of, I don't want to say aggression, but of not being refined or not being sensitive. You know, he's a slugger. It's not, you know, he's something that's kind and sensitive. And I think it's so important because how we perceive our animals, just like us being raised. If you were raised in an environment where you were always perceived as being stupid or a problem, then there's so much of that that we act out, or we act out the other way. We implode, or we become so withdrawn because there's so much projected on us. And I think this happens a lot with animals, but our conversation is about horses. It happens so much with horses. You know, and I hear people talk, well, I mean, I'm personally a real mare person. I get mares. I always have mares. And people will go on and on and on. Well, she's a mare. And then there's the whole red mare thing. And I just find that so much is projected on that there's never even a chance for
Right.
true representation and authenticity to come through. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I've only had one mare in my life, and she was amazing. And I've talked about this with other horse women too, like how the idea of mares are projected upon. And it is an interesting thing. It's so easy for us to project things onto other beings and other people. I mean, that's how the human brain is. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so important to reframe our paradigm in the horse and human world and see them as unique individuals, because they have qualities that are so special. I can't speak so much to the mare thing because, like I said, I've only had one. I've had more geldings for some reason. That's been more of my path, but I absolutely agree. You know, that there is a role they play, and it's important to acknowledge that. It's very much the same stereotype that's put on us women too, us human women.
Right.
Like, she's a
Right.
bitch if we're standing up, but a man
Right.
be like, oh, he's powerful. So I think
Yeah,
it's the same.
that happened to me one time. We were doing just a local small quadrille just for practice. And I was, you separate and you come and you line up with a different horse and you go down the line. It's really good exercise for the horses as far as mentally and all that. And every time I would line up with this one gelding, and I knew this woman and the horse, and I love that horse, but I was on my mare Mystic. And every time we would go around and come together, he would pin his ears and switch his tail, and Mystic just floats out 6 feet to the side because she's very submissive. And we're supposed to be together. So I even said to the woman, can you ask him to not do that? I can't, she's listening to him because he's loud and he's going to kick, or she feels he's going to kick or do something if she doesn't get out of the way. And nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. So after about an hour and 10 minutes, that happened again. And Mystic had enough and she humped her butt. She didn't kick, but she just humped her butt and swished her tail. The woman leading the quadrille stopped the whole quadrille and said, the mare is having a problem. Let's wait. And I was about ballistic on that. It's like, you're the woman who says that woman deserves to get raped because she wore those clothes.
Right.
It is so amazing how the people project how they are with animals, male and female, is a lot how they are with humans.
Exactly.
And I was rabid over the fact that she ignored the gelding for about an hour and 10 minutes. And then as soon as Mystic had enough, the mare had a problem. Yeah.
Right. That's such a perfect example. Very well said. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have anything in specific you want to talk about. I do have one more question for you, but did you have anything specific you want to talk about the role of the horse and humans in their spiritual journey?
I just encourage people to listen and tune in and really drop into their thoughts and their body when they are around horses, and challenge the paradigm that we've been taught. Like I said, I was not taught that way. I came to the work very fresh and new, but I've seen a lot of people who are, highly trained in riding of like, this is the way we are with horses. And not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there is so much more we can tune into the horses if we let go of that trained mind that thinks it knows it all. And you can still hold on to that, but to really develop and foster a closer relationship with your horse or with horses to allow that deeper connection to come out and truly listen and be with them rather than do with them. Yeah.
Right. Actually, that sort of answered the question I was going to say. What would you suggest if people just want to go out and practice hearing their horse, listening to their horse, or accepting the invitations from their horse? What would you suggest that they do? And that sort of answered that question. But if you'd like to add anything to that, you can.
Yes, I would definitely add more. I would suggest the body scan, which is very powerful and you can do anywhere, anytime, which is basically just closing your eyes if you can, if you're in a comfortable situation, certainly not driving, but tuning into your breath, breathing deeply and allowing that oxygen to go through your body, and then go through your whole body, start at your head and go down and notice whatever sensations you're feeling throughout your body, and notice, like, do I feel a pain in my hip? Does my back feel light? And acknowledge that no feeling is bad per se. It's just information. So to really tune into your body and your breath when you are around a horse. And I promise you that if you do that, your connection with the horse will be a lot more powerful. Like he or she will know, oh, she's tuning in or he's tuning into his body, and that will deepen the connection that you might have and the experience that you might have with them. I can promise you that.
So do you do a scan on the horse too, or just on yourself?
You just do it on yourself because you're getting information in your own body, basically. But the interesting thing is that when you get in tune with your body like that, if you are around a horse, you can sometimes pick up with what's going on with the horse. Like you might all of a sudden feel a pain in your left foot. That might be from you, but you might be picking up on something from the horse too.
Right.
So
interesting.
do it on yourself.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to this, and I saw something on, I think it was on Instagram, I think it was Mindfully Wild, Holly Saunders. She talked about when you meet with your horse, do a check-in ritual, and on both of you. And I thought that was an interesting way to word that. When I go to my horses, I assess them completely. I mean, I look at everything, I look at their body, I look to feel something, but I'm remiss on doing it with myself. And so this is kind of a little reminder to jar my memory to do this to myself when I go out, because I kind of energetically, I physically look at them and then I energetically scan them to kind of see where they are and if there's anything that, is drawing my attention or signaling to me.
Beautiful. I love that you do it with them. And yeah, you can bring in your own part to that too, to deepen the experience.
Right. Kind of make it a two-way thing, a ritual that we do. I'm really big on rituals. Okay, so I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about, you can. Otherwise, you can tell people how to get a hold of you and your book. And I will also post this in the YouTube notes.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just incredibly honored to be here. It's wonderful to talk with you. I love talking with horse women, and I feel like there's something, I call it, I've been tuning into it lately, the horse tribe, those of us who really resonate and connect with horses and are able to tune into the messages. So I'm sure there's a lot of you out there watching. This is part of the horse tribe. So
right.
Yeah, feel free to reach out and share, because I always love to hear people's feedback. So yeah, where you can reach me, I'm all over social media. I have a bunch of Instagram pages. My main horse related ones are my main Instagram page, Tara Coyote, and I have a Win Horse Sanctuary page. My horse webpage is winhorsesanctuary.com. I also have a Facebook page, Win Horse Sanctuary. I'm on TikTok as Tara Coyote, and my books are on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, or you can order it from my own website, Grace, Grit, and Gratitude. And then my two Mustang books, Comanche the Wild Mustang coloring book, and then the regular kids picture book. And oh yeah, my audiobook just came out, or my book just came out on audiobook, which is very exciting. So that's a new big win. So I think I covered it. Oh, I do have a YouTube channel where I do share horse related videos sometimes, and that's Tara Coyote also. I think that's it.
That's a lot. You're
That
busy.
is a lot, but yeah.
And I will link at least most of those onto the YouTube, the details down below. So,
Great.
okay, well, I want to thank you so much for joining and for sharing your experience and your wisdom today. And I'm Delia with True North Equestrians, if you'd like to know more about my work, and that will also be included in the link below. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.